But interesting subject, very interesting subject. And this is going to be a tough one now because I really can't participate in this one as much as I would like to. But we've got a really interesting question coming in from David Keane. And it's regarding probably one of the most famous crowd of characters out in the Djuma area at the moment. I've been hearing about them for many years, well, not in the last 2-3 years. I've never had the opportunity to actually see them in face to face. Did have an experience with them about 2 weeks, about 2 weeks ago. But a crowd of lads that have been known as the Mapojos. It's a coalition of 5 or 6.
Yeah, 5 typically, the way we see them, 6 in total.
Yeah. And
well, actually knows quite a lot about them as well. He's done lots of reading and writing about them.
The question that came in, which is it's quite an interesting question, is what are the chances? I mean, being such a strong coalition of 5 males, which is such a unique thing, what are the chances of actually a bigger coalition being formed and actually pushing out the Mapojos?
Jan?
Sure.
Wouldn't that be nice to see?
That would be quite a story unfolding. Okay, well, I really don't have the knowledge backing or to really answer that question, but I would think that we know that some of the males or some of the individuals actually in that in the Mapojos are a little bit older, and Mr. T is losing his mane quite a lot now, and but I would suppose, I don't know what you guys think, that first of all, I think before that's going to happen, this Mapocho male coalition is probably going to not deteriorate, but one of them is going to, or maybe 2 of them, is going to die out or just get discarded eventually. And then, I don't know, 5, 6 lions more, or let's say 7 other lions are taking that I don't know if that's going to happen. I think before that's going to happen, we don't know of any other coalitions that's that big now, but I think before that's going to happen, I think one of the Mapojos, or maybe 2 of them, will either go on their separate ways, or one of them or 2 of them might die, and then there's obviously the chance of another 5 male lions attacking them and taking their stride over, if I can say it that way.
Yeah, it is such a unique thing just to see such a big coalition already, so to try and imagine a bigger coalition coming in would be even more unique. However, I think one thing we can always say is that just when you think you know everything about nature, they throw you one big curveball. So I'd never say impossible, but sure, yeah, it would be quite a scene to see. But they seem to be holding strong at the moment, and have had a very, very interesting history. And the word of the Mapojos throughout the guides and rangers out in this area spreads like wildfire, and it's exhilarating to actually see them, to be that close to such a strong coalition of males and just feel that power. We've had a few experiences that actually, Peter, you found them a few weeks ago with Alex on that buffalo carcass. And you made a very good point on pointing out how intense that stare is, while they were staring directly into the lens almost, and it just goes straight through you. It is just unbelievable.
Yeah, no, they're certainly special lions. I mean, again, that's the kind of question we can sit about and might even do after we say goodnight and talk about it more. But I think Jan's point was very good. In other words, before anything happens, just first of all, I think the chance of a bigger coalition forming is not that much, just purely because the chance of 5-male coalition is quite limited already. But Jan's point was valid. I think before anything really happens, there'll have to be a weakening within the ranks of the Mapojos first, either by 1 or 2 of them getting old, which is possible, but you know that's 4 or 5 years away. But more likely, 1 or 2 of them, the male that's often by himself, gets caught by 2 or 3 other lions. Now, obviously, then by himself, he might be in trouble. Or a snake bite or a buffalo. You know, they caught a big buffalo the other day, and certainly they're strong lions, but a buffalo is still a buffalo. So you know, that could happen. There's a variety of things that could weaken the coalition, and then maybe leave a gap. But more likely, then it won't be a case of them getting displaced. Again, keep in mind that these males have got such a vast territory now that they've got multiple prides. So if the coalition got weakened, it's more likely that they'll get pushed off maybe from one area. Maybe lose 1 of the males in the process or something. But I think for them to just get displaced out of the area that they're dominating now, which is very large, would have to be unique circumstances beyond what we can almost imagine. Just the interest sake, I've mentioned before, but a good friend of mine, Dr. John Grinnell, who researched lions for a long time, the largest coalition he ever studied in East Africa was 7 males. They took over 3 territories combined as a coalition, and then after they're done, so they split into groups into 3 coalitions basically of 3, 2, and 2, and then spend the rest of the years in those groups with the pride. So there's quite a few varieties when you start dealing with these large numbers. Also out of interest sake is that lions can distinguish when they listen to roaring up to 5 males. So if the mapochas are all roaring and there's another male lying somewhere in the bush some distance away, he would know there's 5 lions roaring. Anything more than that, they don't really have the ability to count, if that makes any sense. Most likely because it's almost never the case, unless obviously you have the females roaring and so on. So there's a lot of potential stories to hypothesize about and talk about, and I'm sure we will still work through lots of them over the next while. But I think to answer the premise of that question is that most likely the mapochas will be around for quite a few years. I would say 4 or 5 years at least. 1, maybe 2 generations of cubs, without having too much hassles. But then again, tomorrow a big herd of buffalo decide they've had enough of the mapochas, and 500 buffalo take on 5 lions, and numbers do count in the end.
There's a lot of action happening out there in the bush. You just never know how it's going to turn out. Yeah. Well, that'll bring us to our next question, and our final question for the evening, from Phil and Jill in the UK. They've pointed out that very often we get out the vehicles while we're out on our game jobs, and walk around through the bush, perhaps following tracks, to go fetch something to explain to everyone. And what are the risks of snake bite? Do we wear some protective gear? Do we just take the risk? How do we actually deal with that? What are the risks when it comes to snakes out there? You have a little chuckle over there. It sounds like you have something to say, Jan.
No, I was just thinking. Sorry. It's if out in the bush, obviously the chances of getting snake bitten is much larger. But I mean, we had a close experience here in the FCC with the puff adder, and Alex came to save me with a very big puff adder. I mean, it happened right here, and I mean, it's still the bush. It's a couple of meters closest or to the closest fence. So, but yeah, it is. I think the possibility is probably bigger than in here getting bitten by a snake in here in the FCC than in the bush, though.
Probably true, huh?
Yeah.
Well, my father used to always say, Phil and Jill, and I'm sure lots of other people that might be concerned about snakes as well. He always said that the 2 most dangerous things in Africa are snakes and dehydration, and bear helps for both of them. So I'm never too worried about snake bite, as long as we've got a few beers back here. But that's all in good jest.